Look, what do you make of all this then? Where are you on these latest developments?
Well, look, it sort of beggars belief, doesn't it, that quite a few years after the horrific tragedy that happened in Grenfell, we're still talking about implementing some really necessary recommendations just to make buildings safe. Let me give you a sort of a good example of what some of those recommendations actually are. So we're talking about having regular inspections of lifts, of fire escapes, having the right amount of staircases and sky rises. And it would appear that the government, at all levels hasn't been able to implement any of those. Just last month, there was a very, very sort of worrying case of an incredibly high-rise building in Canary Wharf, which is south of my flat, which is another clad flat. So Canary Wharf, that was incredibly high with one staircase for well over 30 or 40 floors. So, this is not just a question of, regulations changing and, us all feeling a bit, better. It's actually sort of practical stuff that could really help improve building and fire safety, particularly in high rises. And to be quite frank, it's really sort of tragic that we're still having to talk about it so many years after.
Yeah, there's the obvious risk to human life, of course there is, but there's also just the kind of financial practicalities of it. I didn't quite catch exactly which kind of cladding you said your flat had on it there, but I'm assuming you can't really sell that with that on it, can you?
Not at all. So I have, for the last 18 months, been lumbered with a flat that is effectively worth zero because no mortgage company will offer a mortgage on it, and where the cladding still remains as well. Now, a good thing has happened in the past 6 months in the sense that the government has moved to say that, in principle, I shouldn't have to pay for the removal of this cladding. And I should clarify, it's not the cladding that was on Grenfell, but it is timber cladding, so it's very flammable. I won't have to pay for it. But of course, nothing else has really sort of moved. It's still on the flat, it's still unsellable, and it's still practically dangerous if a fire were to break out. We just need real action, and we need real action from all levels of government to be able to make sure that hundreds of thousands of, homeowners, flat holders like myself can actually move on with their lives.
Yeah, you said there, though, hundreds of thousands of flat owners, homeowners who've got this cladding around them there. Any idea about how much it might cost to actually strip that all off?
Well, Parliament has talked about a figure of £15 billion, and that's just for external cladding. Of course, the true cost is so much higher because it's not just what's on the outside of the building, it's also stuff on the inside, like cavity breaks and fire installation systems as well. So the true cost is of course, going to be in the tens of billions. What the government has proposed is to meet a good proportion of that 15 billion cost through some money that they themselves have put up and through recouping costs from developers who, of course, are responsible in the first place. The trick, I'm afraid, however, is that Michael Gove is going to have to really twist a lot of arms of these developers to actually get them to cough up. He said that they should have to pay. They said that they shouldn't. So people like me are sort of stuck in limbo at the moment.
Yeah, and can I ask, is this just a UK problem? Because I've always wondered this, Well, what happened at Grenfell was one of the desperate tragedies of modern times, certainly, and I can remember exactly where I was. In fact, I was living around the corner, actually, when it happened. And I just wondered, is it only us in this country who's using this kind of cladding? Is it all over Europe? Is it all over the world? Are there potentially millions of people sitting in what could be a tinderbox?
You're quite right that it's not just us that are suffering this issue. In fact, the other part of the Grenfell tragedy is that we knew something like this, or we potentially knew something like this would happen long before it did, because there were cases, very similar cases, of buildings in the Middle East, high-rise buildings that were clad with the same material that actually caught on fire and caused a horrendous loss of life as well. So there are still buildings in other countries that have this dangerous cladding on them. Kingspan, the maker of the cladding that was on Grenfell, is still in operation and is still selling their cladding. So, fortunately in the UK, we're able to exercise a level of transparency and visibility over that. But who knows? Who knows how deep this problem goes globally? And that's a really worrying thing.